Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So this is the third session of Sutta Studies 2021. And last time I explained a bit about the cultural and religious environment at the Buddha's time, which hopefully helps to explain a bit about why the Buddha used certain terms, why he explained things in a certain way. Just like, today if we don't realize it, we're still, as it were, sort of a product of our culture. So the way that we see things and think about things is still very culturally defined. I don't know what exactly Australian culture is, but just know that it's a particular kind. Anyway, so there are three topics which are especially important to understand the Buddha's teachings, which the Buddha himself, he defined it in a specific way to his teaching, which is a little bit different than it was in India. So he had he absorbed those teachings, cultural religious teachings from India, but then he adapted them because he had a very unique insight. As I explained last time, about the Buddha's enlightenment, he was actually quite a radical approach. I don't know if he was, he's a Buddha, they say, so of course the Buddhists have a special take on reality, or a special way of relating to reality. That's part of their inheritance. All the previous Buddhas, the Buddha explained his particular path of awakening, he also referenced it to the 6 previous Buddhas. So, he's just another Buddha. I mean, he was one Buddha on a whole lineage. It's like a human, you say, a human inheritance. But some of these other Buddhas, there isn't any historical record of them, I don't think. But so we just take it on trust, I guess, with the Buddha following in those footsteps and by that example. But his unique approach, I would say, is especially come to the teaching on Anatta. That's what the whole book about, the whole series of talks is about. How he came to that unique insight and unique understanding. But to start off, there are 3 different areas. Well, one of them is Anatta. The first one is Kamma, or karma, and as it's known by most people, karma probably. Kamma is the Pali equivalent. And this was well established in India, and while it is sort of kind of a unique term from Asia, but a similar principle applies to virtually all religions. It is really ethical causality. You're basically the simplest rendition of the principle of Kamma is, skillful actions give pleasant or pleasant results. Unskillful action give unpleasant results. And some religions have kind of, they say, cosmologicalized them or something. So the pleasant actions are heaven, and ultimately heaven, and the unpleasant actions lead to hell realm. It's very common, even in Buddhism. But the Buddha had a different approach. And the word karma, anyway, is in the English language now. It's in the Oxford Dictionary of English. However, the definition, sorry to say, folks, is wrong. Well, maybe it's right for Hinduism, maybe, but it's wrong for Buddhism. So unfortunately, unless you understand the Buddhist approach, Theravada Buddhist approach to Kamma, you get it all wrong. And, probably it's, for some people, it may be they've got it wrong for their whole lifetime. I don't know if if you got it right or not, but if you grew up with it, unfortunately, if you grow up in a Buddhist country, then your parents have to simplify it. Just like they simplified the Christian view of morality. But then there's more sophisticated ways to look at it. So the definition in the Oxford English Dictionary, Oxford Dictionary of English, is the sum of a person's actions in this and previous states of existence. That's wrong. I should have said it, should I? It's the first thing you get into your brain now, yeah. So can you correct it? Yeah. Kamma means action. Yeah. It isn't the sum of your previous actions. It is the action you do right now. That is Kamma. But there is the understanding, I guess the kind of a background understanding that actions give result. So there is implicit in the action is result. But in Theravada, the result is called vipaka. And it's important to keep these two separate. There's action and result. If you don't keep them separate, they get conflated, they get mixed together, and then it becomes rigid, it becomes determinism, not Buddhism. If your actions are the same as a result, how do you change them? You're a victim of your actions then. And we're acting all the time, so sorry, no hope for you. But if actions are one thing, result is another, there's a little bit of gray area in the middle, a little bit of space in the middle where you can make some changes. Just for example, if you in the heat of the moment, you say something, say you speak with anger or something, then you realize, oh, that's unskillful. Well, if you could then do another action, a positive one, and apologize. They actually call it a hosikam in Thai, I think. Yeah? You ask for apology. So it's an action, not a kamma, a hosikam. So it's an action which is, I don't know what a hosi means, but it sounds good. Forgiveness action or something. And then the potential action of the potential result of the first action, speaking out of anger, is changed. If you speak out of anger and you don't correct it, then there's going to be action. There's going to be results of that. Either just for yourself feeling bad, or the other person gets really annoyed and comes back at you, gets revenge. But if you apologize, make another action, a positive one though, it can cancel it even. Okay, so you still maybe feel not so bad, not so good, still feel bad about it, but it's not so bad, is it? Not really, really bad. It's bad, not bad. Because you've apologized, so you can, okay, now I feel better about it. So that's what's the importance of keeping these two separate, action and result. So, and the Buddha made a very unique contribution. Originally, karma meant, at the very early time in Hinduism, which was Brahmanism at that time, karma meant the action of the sacrifice. I mentioned this before. They sacrificed to the gods to placate the gods. So karma was that action, whether it was, offering some ghee or something, or lighting a fire, burning the ghee, or even an animal sacrifice. That was called karma. But then later, the Brahmanas, another development of the Hindu scriptures, it became the recitation. Special prayers were recited. So it wasn't so coarse as a physical sacrifice as the Brahmin priests recited prayers, special Sanskrit verses. So that was the Kamma, the special verses. And then the Buddha came along. He was a meditator. See? He didn't believe absolutely in rites and rituals. More important was the intention behind it. So the Buddha, as a meditator, he defined Kamma as intention. You got that? Very profound. A little bit tricky, mind you, but very profound. Yeah. So you have to as a meditator, he changed his approach from a physical thing, Kamma, as a sacrifice, to a mental one. And as any of you, if you try to meditate upon this and try to observe your intention, quite tricky, isn't it? Have you noticed your intention? Not only is it internal, it's not so obvious. Like somebody can do some action, they can do some action, like make some offering, and what's the intention behind it? Yeah, very hard. You can see the offering they're making. Yeah, I think, oh, that's really valuable. You know, must be count really good, high on the merit scale. You know. But what's the intention behind it? You know, if they cling to it, you know, if they have a lot of a desire for it, you know, that by this merit I'll go to heaven or something. Well, it's kind of corrupted a little bit because it's not selfless giving. The whole point of generosity is surrender, self-surrender, basically. But if you bring yourself into it, oops, you know, you kind of little fudged it a little bit, you see. There's still self in there. And sometimes the self might even get, you know, inflated. You know, look how much I gave. I gave more than that person. You know, I. The ego gets even bigger. It doesn't. The purpose is to sacrifice the self, but you've used that action to inflate the self. Oops. So intention is tricky. And one of the first lessons I learned was how much it changed. And when I first went to Thailand, I had to get a visa. They allowed a 1-month visa to stay in Thailand at that time. So I went to the immigration office in Chiang Mai because it was the closest place where I was staying. Some little branch office with, I think, 2 guys in it. They had to spend half a day trying to find a place. Thai government immigration office in the ground floor. And then I went there and, oh yes, here, fill out this forms. Yeah. We have to apply to Bangkok to get permission. So come back in 2 weeks. So I came back in 2 weeks and they said, oh, well, we haven't heard from Bangkok yet. Come back in 2 more weeks. This went on for about 3 months. And one time I came back and they said, well, we heard from Bangkok, but we lost your entry card. So they don't even know that you came into the country. So you got to leave the country and come back again. So they bought me a bus ticket to Laos. Step across the border for 1 day and come back again and re-enter Thailand. But it was a very nice trip to Laos. And I even wanted to stay there. It was a very nice temple, very big forest temple, almost abandoned. There was already very, very few monks there. But it was in transition to becoming communist. So they didn't want any foreigners around to see the takeover, I guess. So I had to leave. So when you think about Kamma, in a Buddhist sense, you must think intentional actions. And this was quite radical in the Buddhist time because it was mostly, in India at that time, Kamma was mostly a physical thing, you see. But the Buddha, as a meditator with a refined intellect, refined state of mind, intentional action. So this makes quite a big difference, doesn't it? You know, you need to, and then you know, not only you have to know your intention, but it means that if you step on an ant, for example, unintentionally, you're walking along and you just didn't see it, it jumps out and you step on it, it's not bad Kamma. Unless you intentionally raise your foot and stomp it into the ground, it's not Kamma then. Whereas some of the sect in India, they believed even you unintentionally kill something is still bad karma. I remember when I was traveling in India, way out in the desert somewhere in this lonely road. It was paved somewhat. And there's two ladies walking down the road wearing white, sweeping the path before them. They had white masks on. They were the first ones to wear masks, even before COVID. They had masks, and they were sweeping the road as they walked. I thought, what the heck is? They were Jain nuns. Jains have this belief in complete harmlessness. They can't even step on an ant in front of them, so they sweep the path. I always wondered, how many ants got caught in the broom and died anyway. And they had a mask so they wouldn't breathe in any insects, and unintentionally, accidentally kill them. That was how extreme their view of Kamma was. So the Buddha is pointing at intentionality. And even though intention is, tricky, it changes very quickly. But if you can set up intentionality, for example, you intend to do good, even though you fail, but you set up intentionality and you keep feeding it, you keep energizing it, it slowly comes around, if you like. Even though your original intention maybe isn't so good, but if you keep up with that, it begins to transform into positive intentionality and positive intentions, good intentions then. And then we come to one of the issues. Intention is also, you can define it as intention, volition, will. It's will also. You have a will. Intention is also will. I can determine. Where there's a will, there's a way. So I kind of set up my will to do good things. Yeah. But you have to recognize then in the West anyway, we have this idea, there's free will. And the Cambridge Dictionary, now I've gone from Oxford to Cambridge, defines free will, the ability to decide what to do independent of outside influences. That's free will. So even though we are independent of outside influences, unfortunately we still have inside influences. Our inside influences are our prejudices, our bias, our confusion, our ignorance, basically our ignorance and craving. And unless you're a Buddha, you don't have too much free will. We might allow that it's partially free, because you do have an element, but the Buddha gave this word, aramba. You have an element of instigation. That's Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, aramba, instigation. Like I say, with intentionality, your intentionality is flexible. If you can energize it in a positive way or energize it in a negative way. But it doesn't mean you can just stop your old actions overnight. I don't have free will to stop smoking or something, or some bad habit. But I can intend that. I can set up a good intention, and the more I energize it, the more it can take effect. And maybe at one time, it happens. And the most important part of Kamma, of course, is the ethical quality of it. This was, a lot of the Buddhist, probably the majority of the Buddhist teachings are really about ethics. And Kamma is ethical causality. There's cause and effect relationship to our actions. And, as I mentioned already, the basic definition, good, skillful actions give pleasant results. That's a very, very basic law. Unskillful actions give unskillful results. And Buddhists, I think, would prefer to use the word skillful rather than bad and good and bad. Because skillful and unskillful, you have to find out for yourself. There is a certain relativity to it. There is general standards. You can say, killing somebody is unskillful. But then, certain politicians, I guess, then make an exception. It's okay to kill an enemy. You're a hero then. You get a medal. No, but so it's still unskillful to kill. Most of the people who are provoked to kill are they're in a way they're a bit mad. There's some kind of inherent, I think, inhibition to have so much violence to kill somebody, or even an animal. It's a lot of aggression and violence. Either you're threatened, or you got to be really provoked to a very, very strong degree. And the sources of unskillful actions are greed, aversion, delusion. Very common, what we call the common roots of unskillful action, and greed, aversion, delusion. I mean, these are the very basic expressions of selfishness. Greed, I want. Aversion, I don't want. Delusion, I don't know. And the basis of skillful action then are non-greed, non-aversion, non-delusion. So we got to work cut out for us. Huh? And then there is the Buddha gives quite a few details of what basically, you can say practically, are good actions. What are the skillful things? Like there's the 10 bases of upright conduct. There's let's see now, what does it go? There's three of bodily action, refraining from killing, from stealing, from sexual misconduct. 4 of speech, unskillful speech. And then there's 3 of the mind, freedom from greed, aversion, delusion. Or no, it's the 3 right thoughts, harmlessness, and non-ill will, and renunciation. That's the 3 mental ones. The other ones that was Mahayana, I think. But anyway, try to keep the Theravada for that moment. And in the Buddhist cultures, they also talk about not so much of skill and unskill, kusala and akusala, but about merit and demerit, punya and bap. Say in Thai is boon and bap. Sounds like 2 comic characters, doesn't it? Boon and bap. So the basic 3 forms of boon, merit, are dana, sila, bhavana. Generosity, morality, meditation. And there is one sutta that gives a very, very detailed breakdown of these. The merit, the generosity is to feed, even to feed an animal is generosity. Feed the insects and the animals. And then to feed one monk, and then to feed the sangha with the Buddha, all together. Feed an arahant, that's the highest type of generosity. And then sila. First of all, take own refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and take in the 5 precepts, the 8 precepts. And then bhavana, this is the highest form of merit. And the first level is to develop metta bhavana, friendliness meditation, for the time it takes to milk a cow. Anybody ever milked a cow? 5 minutes? 10? Depends how good you are. 10 minutes? Okay. 10 minutes of metta bhavana is better than all the generosity and all the sila. And then the highest kind of bhavana is to have an insight into impermanence for a finger snap. I'd take that one because it sounds a bit quicker and easier, but those questions maybe not quite so easy, Insight into impermanence. You have to work at it, and maybe it happens. But so the whole point of Kamma, especially when it deals with Anatta, is that it is self that's acting, but that's where we start off with, right? Just to think, oh yeah, right, everything's Anatta. It's going way over the top. Here I am being Anatta. So, so we got to work with what we have. So first of all, developing skillful actions tends to lessen the ego, the self. I say greed, aversion, delusion, that's ultimate selfishness. If I try to satisfy them, I want, I get, I don't like, I'll destroy, I don't know, I'll just stay deluded and intoxicated or something. So when we develop the positive ones, non-greed, non-aversion, non-delusion, it lightens the sense of self. Yeah? When there's no more greed in your mind, where's the I that wants? Yeah? There's no place for it to settle. So there's no aversion. If there's no aversion, then no hating there. Everything's fine. Everything's okay. Beautiful, ugly, no big deal. And delusion, of course, is ultimately it ends in enlightenment. Seeing the truth of anatta. It's all empty of self anyway. So this is why the Buddha can use this. I mean, if we believe that, as one of my early beliefs when I was looking for the truth, was that, I heard about karma, but I understood it wrongly, that it was fate. Mostly it's defined as fate. If everything's already fated by your previous actions, you're a prisoner. You can't change it. But the Buddha is saying, no, you can. You don't have to experience all the results of your previous action. You can change them. And I'll come to this next part here, anatta. Yeah, but the point is, you lessen up. You use the self to lessen your attachment to the self, and gradually you can kind of rise above it. So now we come to anatta. So unfortunately, the original word, atta, or in Pali, or atman in Sanskrit, atman has two meanings to it. One is just the relative self. Unfortunately, in English, we don't have the same word. We have two different ones. I mean, usually we have our relative self, we say self, and then we talk about some other kind of self which is immortal, the immortal soul. I think most religions have an immortal soul. Yeah. So that's what Atman means. Atman, not Anatman, but Atman. It means both of them. So you can say, Atman went for a walk. You can say Atman will live forever. He is immortal. The same Atman, but in English we don't have that. So when we translate this, when it gets translated anatta or atta, self, it gets translated as anatta. Most translators just do it literally. It means not self, no self. An is the negative, so no self. Atta is self. Anatta is not no self. But then most people refer to self as the relative self. So it sounds like you're denying your relative self. But it's sort of like, it sounds absurd, doesn't it? Here I am. I mean, there's no me. Here I am. I can scream as loud as I want. But what the Buddha was referring to was that immortal soul part. What he actually said was sabbe Dhamma anatta. So he wasn't denying a self. He said all things are not a permanent self. Are not permanent, basically. Not a permanent self. Yeah. And this was, this came out of his unique insight, as I mentioned, his unique insight of enlightenment. Originally, people were looking for this Atman, this mysterious Atman, the immortal soul. When they found the immortal soul, that was the true essence of life, you see. Through all their relative garbage, you see, relative self-garbage. There's all this thinking of yourself and being rich and famous and all that. Yeah. But behind it was this immortal soul, which even some of the mystics began to speculate in India. This Atman is a little jewel behind your heart. It's a glowing energy in the middle of your head here. It's something, you see. Basically, people are looking for a thing, an object. So the Buddha started off that way, but he wasn't very successful at it. Even though he practiced meditation to very advanced degrees, the cessation of perception and neither perception nor non-perception. Boy, that's a pretty rarefied self there. The trouble was, you come out of it again. You get to these very advanced states, like state of nothingness. Well, your self kind of disappears, nothingness. But then you come out of it again, back to being ordinary, roughly. So you only temporarily lose yourself in samadhi, if you like, deep states. You only temporarily lose it. Then you come back again and, whoop, here I am again. Zoop, back again to this body and mind. So the Buddha tried a different approach. Rather than looking for an object, he looked at the processes that caused death, right? Dependent origination. What is the cause of death? Is birth. What's the cause of birth? Existence, bhava, becoming. What's the cause of becoming? Grasping. He folded it back. So he wasn't looking for a thing, an object. Most people were looking, they still had an object-orientated consciousness. And we still do today, most people. But the Buddha suddenly woke to a process-orientated consciousness. You got that? Processes, not things, processes. And that was eureka. It's processes, it's not things. Keep looking for things, and ultimately, the more you look, the same as scientists these days, they look at, when I studied physics at university, we looked at the solid particles, and then we started getting down to the elementary particles. This is going to be Greek to you, but it is Greek actually. Musons and pions and neutrinos, and you heard of them before? Yeah. Okay, electrons, and yeah, they keep looking and looking and looking, and most of the electron is empty space. Where's the thing in it? It's empty space. The more they look, they don't find things anymore. They just find energetic processes going on. So the Buddha was the most, he was already way ahead of his time, you see. He was already a nuclear scientist and a psychologist. But that was the key to his awakening. He saw processes there. And you look at processes, the so-called Atman, the thing Atman, is just a process. The five groups of grasping, being grasped, based upon delusion. You don't see it clearly enough, and you just I can't look any further. I just say, okay, yeah, I got it. It's Atman. Yeah, thank you. Or we even English are even lazier and just say I. Me, one letter, two letters. Atman has about 6 letters, isn't it? But I is only 1. I'm number 1. So the Buddha asked, really, he began to inquire how is a human being made? How do we experience reality rather than what they are? And he had this breakthrough. It's only processes, only processes. So I'll explain that later, the processes, which is particularly the 5 groups of grasping. Takes a bit of grasping, a bit of study to grasp it. But very interesting, what the Buddha did refer to, there's some scriptures that do refer to the conventional self. There's a whole chapter in the Dhammapada, the Attavaga. You are the source of your unskillfulness. You're the source of skillfulness. Yeah? And you can rely upon nobody else but yourself. Take yourself as an island. Yeah. Take yourself as a refuge. Yeah. So the Buddha did refer to, and even himself, he did say, "Oh yeah, I am tired now, so I have to lie down. Now I'm hungry, so I have to go an alms round." But it was just conventional reality. But he didn't get attached to it. He didn't recognize that the I, which is tired, is not the ultimate I. It's only a process now of, lack of energy, etc., and physical discomfort, etc. Yeah, and then it passed away. But if you really believe that this body is yourself, and you grasp it, then you're tired all the time. It's a hard job trying to keep that myself, my body self going. It's a hard job. But when you can let go of the grasping of it, you can flow with it. Yeah. Sometimes it's energetic, sometimes not so energetic. That's just the way the body is. That's nature. It doesn't conform with my view of things, but let go of your view, and that's the way it is. Yeah. But there's a conventional self, and then there's the you can say the ultimate view, the paramatta view of the self, anatta, if you like. It's a process. But another very interesting one mentioned in the scriptures is called the Atman, the great self. Yeah, you've heard of Mahatma Gandhi. Yeah, Mahatma, great self. And this is only mentioned a few times in the scriptures, but it's showing this progression now from the conventional self to the ultimate understanding of self. The great self is developed, somebody who's developed in body, morality, in mind, in wisdom. And then they become unlimited, a great self, and immeasurable. And the Buddha gives a very unique analogy. It's like, he said, it's like putting a grain of salt in a bowl of water. Yeah. And you think the water will be salty then? It's got salt in it, a pinch of salt in it, in a cup of water. Pretty salty, yeah? Put that grain of salt now, or that pinch of salt, in the Ganges River. Do you think it's salty? Yeah. So the point is that when the being, if you like, our self, if you like, is developed in body, you can say it's you recognize the nature of body, and not attaching to it in a very narrow way. Developed in morality. If you're developing morality, then it helps us to let go of greed, aversion, delusion. Huh? Greed at its extreme becomes stealing. Aversion at its extreme becomes killing. So to follow the precepts, even the 5 precepts, you have to be quite self-sacrificing. Huh? You even have to sacrifice your body to the mosquitoes, and developed in mind. It was developing meditation practice, that your mind can, ideally in certain states of samadhi, you can experience moments of emptiness, or no sense of a physical body, not caught up in your thinking faculty, too much personal thoughts. Your mind goes above it. Mind goes very, very quiet, and no thinking, then nobody thinking, right? And then developed in wisdom. So when one has the insight, the wisdom to understand, that's what the Buddha is talking about, gradually easing out of our obsession with the self into more and more refined states of mind, if you like, refined states of body, refined states of mind, then you can step out of it. So the self is a great self, but then it's still got a self to it. The next step is release, letting go of that self completely, even though it's great. But it's still a self, so so it's limitations. So, so then after that, we come to Nibbana. Yeah? After you've let go of yourself. Nibbana also is a little bit hard to comprehend, because you got to be there to know it, really. You have to experience it to know it. So I don't know if I should talk about it or not. Make myself a hypocrite. but at least I read the book about it. So that's the least I can do. Because some people think Nibbana is a place. Again, we have this object-orientated consciousness We're stuck with that. So we think that Nibbana is a place. Maybe we think it's 10 Mile Hollow or something. So you come here. But I remember meeting somebody in Thailand, this very devoted Buddhist, and he was telling me that he saw meditation practice as, well, dana, sila, bhavana, really. It's like you develop dana, generosity, morality, meditation, and if on this good karma, good kusala kamma, fills up your mind, your heart, they say in Thai, citta, and it floats up. It floats up to the different realms, you see, getting up. First of all, it goes to the heaven realms, and it goes up to the very, very ceiling, the cosmological ceiling, and it's Nibbana up there. Thunk. There you got Nibbana, just floating up through dana, sila, bhavana. I thought, wow. That's a lot of hot air there. I said, no, Nibbana is beyond heaven. It's not a place, it's not a thing, But he was a very long-term Buddhist, and I was just new to it. So who might argue with him, So. But it literally means Nibbana. Literally means to go out or extinguish, just like the fuel goes out. Just like the analogy the Buddha gave was like a candle flame. I can see the reflection in the windows there, candle flame behind me. See? It's kept going by the fuel, right? The fuel, the wax in the candle, and the air, the oxygen. See? It keeps going because of that. See? If the air is cut off, if the wax is burnt up, the candle goes out. See? So that's what the extinguish is. I mean, it's not. Some people think it is. Oh, myself has to be extinguished. I've got to extinguish myself. Yeah. How can you extinguish yourself? There's still the extinguisher left, huh? But what goes out is the fuel which keeps the realms of birth and death going, keeps suffering going. As long as we have a self, the self is born and dies, born and dies. I mean, you can see it literally. You can see it literally. Maybe you can't see it, but you can imagine it maybe, that we're born and die. This body is born and dies many countless lifetimes. Or you can see it in the present moment. How many times do you think about yourself? Yeah. I thought, I gotta remember to come down here and give the talk today. Yeah, right. And then I became the wood collector. And I was not the person giving the lecture. I was a wood collector for a little while. So I've died and been reborn many times today, you see, in my mind, you see. I've been a wood collector. I had to put my gas canister back up there, take my gas canister down. I had to do some sweeping. I had I've died and been reborn many times. See? Myself, my sense of a self, see. And especially what goes out is dukkha, unsatisfactoriness. And I think you recite every day, yeah? Do you in the chanting? Jati pi dukkha, jara pi dukkha, birth, jati, birth, jati, jara, old age, marana pi dukkha, death, the suffering. It's not just the feeling cold from the weather or hot from the sun or something. It's birth and death, so it's very, very comprehensive. So the fuel keep this process going. The Buddha, it's mentioned in different forms. The most basic one is we are hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. So hindered by ignorance and craving are the primary ones. Yeah, keep this going, keep our self going. And you can say ignorance is like the intellectual or the mental side of it, and craving is the emotional side of it. Huh? Craving, thirst, craving, So those two I go into much more detail in a few days. They're really nitty-gritty. Or, as I mentioned already, greed, aversion, delusion. That's the kind of basic three fires of that keep the fuel going, keep the cycle going. The Buddha gave one of the discourses was the fire sermon. You know, everything is burning with greed, aversion, delusion. And then there is the three or four, what's called the asavas. It's a word which is borrowed from the Jain tradition in India. There could also like the very fundamental defilements or fuel for the fires. And these are sensuality, existence or becoming, and ignorance. Very basic stuff. And then there is the 10 fetters, the 10 basic fetters, which they kind of coordinate with the different levels of awakening. The stream enterer transcends the first 3 fetters, and then the non-returner finishes off 5, the basic 5, the lower 5 fetters, and only the arahant finishes off all 10 of them. Some of them are quite refined, like craving for the fine sense realm or something, more immaterial realm, and conceit, one of the last fetters to go. And we even though we can the sotapanna, the stream enterer, sees through, has some kind of initial insight into the insubstantiality or the unreality of a self, but they still have this conceit. It's so ingrained in us, like I mentioned, it's an underlying disposition. Yeah. Only the arahant is able to uproot it completely. Yeah. Even though they don't, even the stream enterer does not say, they still in the back of their mind, they realize, there isn't an I who's seeing, who's smelling, whatever. Yeah, but automatically there is. As soon as your attention wanders, it's right there. It's a latent tendency. But so there is these different levels of refinement of wisdom, if you like, of practice and wisdom. As one starts off, one just has this, as it were, intellectual understanding, which is a good start. You get a kind of a roadmap. It's like having the roadmap where to go. But then we have to travel on that journey. It's like somebody just having an idea, or rough idea where to get to, which way to go. If you don't have that, where to even start? But if you know, okay, this is the way what I have to do now. This is the road that's going to lead me to Nibbana, the sacred place. Even though my idea of Nibbana has changed over the years considerably. I remember reading about the Buddha saying that Nibbana is possible for anybody. I thought, oh yeah, right. I guess I guess I can give it a month or so, or a couple of months. Go to Thailand, meditate for a month, get enlightened, go home again. But 47 years later, let me see now. Where was it? I think it's a bit closer. But the Buddha also, in Nibbana, he gave practical examples. The cessation of greed, aversion, delusion, the ending of craving and ignorance. But he gave some kind of, you can say, mystical interpretation of it too, explanation of it. So it's a place where there's no coming and no going, no abiding, no passing away, and no arising. A place which is non-established, non-functioning, without foundation, and is the end of dukkha. You got that? And it's not just it's obviously not a place, you see, but it is a way of understanding. When you can step beyond your object-oriented consciousness, so are you looking at things and again, look at processes, and you notice that processes, there are some which are uplifting, and some processes bring you down, Then you begin to recognize and feed those ones which are uplifting, expansive, which are there's no end to them, no foundation, there's no basis, And then you keep recognizing those and encouraging that, and you begin to recognize more space in your life. There's more space there. Generally, we want to fill it up with inciting things, but they always come to an end, don't they? And then you feel a bit frazzled or a bit burnt out or something. But when you look, you recognize, oh, that's just more suffering. Okay, it's exciting suffering, but for a little while, but it comes to an end. And then you can let it go, and there's more space there. Your sense of peace and space, and hey, that's that lasts. It's got some substance to it. It's got some space to it. It's got, it doesn't just rise and pass away. It's got some space to it. It's got some constancy to it. And it's, one time when I was in Wat Pah Pong with Ajahn Chah, and Ajahn Sumedho was in England at the time, and I think he wrote a letter to Ajahn Sumedho, Ajahn Chah, and one of the other Western monks was translating it to Ajahn Chah. I can't remember if he wrote a letter or not, but anyway, we're there. So Ajahn Chah said to this other monk, he said, "Okay, take a letter for Ajahn Sumedho. Take a letter for me." He said, "Okay, yep." He said, so he just sat there for a minute, and he said, "Okay, when there's no coming and there's no going." Let's see, we get it right though. Oh yeah, there's no coming, there's no going, there's no standing still. Where are you? And the other monk said, "That sounds like Zen." Ajahn Chah said, "No, it's Ajahn Chah." So if you contemplate that, no coming, no going, and no standing still, where are you? I won't answer it. That's for you to answer. So, those are three important areas to keep in mind: Kamma, Anatta, and Nibbana, because we'll keep coming back to them. They're like the foundation of the Buddhist teachings, and from there we go into more details of various aspects of it. But those are the kind of the foundation to rely upon. Nibbana is there. And we would depend upon the principle of ethical causality, of Kamma, and then we can get the experience, perhaps, recognizing that there is Anatta. What it really means is, I translate it as no permanent self. There's no permanent self there. There's processes. Doesn't mean you just disappear. There's processes there going on which appear to be a self, unless you look more carefully at them, more closely at them. You look more closely at what is the self. Most people don't even think about it, do they? They just say, "Oh yeah, it's me." But what is you, actually? What is it? What is it? And one of the first things I saw was the self is, my gosh, many faces. Sometimes beautiful, but you see the ones you keep looking at the beautiful ones, but there's also many ugly ones there too, which pop up from time to time, and you think, "Oh, where'd that come from?" So you recognize, oh, there's many faces of self. So stop taking it very seriously. When you can recognize the process nature of self, if you like. So the more you look at it, the more we practice it, the more we understand those principles, they begin to take meaning for us then. So hopefully you'll be able to contemplate and be more clear about your understanding of the Buddhist teachings in the future.